the big driver of this is actually that the value of retaining a customer and upselling to a customer, making them happy, making the network effect, word of mouth, having them as close friends, like any brand should do. I think that's becoming kind of a new currency. So of course you need to be aggressive, especially as a growth company in the startup world, on the new sales, but you have to focus equally on the customer success side.
Project A podcast.
Welcome everyone to the podcast about customer service. And as we will see, that's probably not even enough as a term. My name is Raul Porojan. I'm a sales and customer success specialist at Project A. And I'm sitting here with Mads, who is the CEO of Dixa. And Dixa is our newest investment. And I'm personally very excited to talk to him because customer service is very near and dear to me. And Mads, maybe you can introduce yourself and also say a couple words about what your company does.
Of course. Thank you, Raul. I'm Mads Fosselius, CEO, co-founder of Dixa, which is a next generation conversational customer engagement platform, and that's a long name. I will definitely elaborate a little bit on that. But basically, we are a customer service platform founded in Copenhagen back in 2015, and we've seen some rapid growth in some new areas of customer service. And we are 45 people in total today in our offices in Copenhagen, London, and Kiev, and soon also Berlin. Mm-hmm. So I've been using the almost entire of my professional life in the customer service industry. So back in the old call center days, into the telcos, and had previously been in two companies that was exited, where we also did call center solutions, customer engagement platforms, even some CRM systems. And therefore I've been spending my time with these big brands and vendors since I was 19. So that's a terrifying 19 years in the industry. Besides that, yes, I am a very proud CEO of Dixa and proud to be a part of the Project A family as well. But also I've seen in my personal life that I've experienced a lot of bad customer experiences, actually horrible customer service experiences, to be very direct. And at the same time, in my previous company, our co-founder Jacob and I, who's our CTO today, we actually were building customer engagement solution or customer service platforms for brands in different verticals. But the challenge for us was that we had to use 3, 4, 5 different technologies every time we just wanted to build one multi-channel customer service solution. So that was a big challenge for us, but also for the brands that wants to actually drive a better customer experience and also just a better customer service across all these channels. Mm-hmm. And that was actually where the idea around Dixa came into play back in 2015. So a combination of a personal and professional frustration, I would say. And I think we also realized that was a not so obvious gap in the market, because different vendors were very good at doing email ticket support, or they were very good at voice and call center and phone systems, or on the third silo, they were really good at live chat and messaging, but all of them very much biased towards one channel, where they were very good at building a system. But things has changed, at least at how we are seeing customer service today. I think we're seeing a big change, a dramatic change actually, in how consumers are actually seeing brands and experiencing brands and how they relate to brands. And the other side, we also see a dramatic change in how they engage in their personal life via many channels, messaging channels such as WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Twitter, and of course also classic and traditional channels as phone and email and SMS. And I believe that change has rapidly changed the landscape on technologies, but also how companies and brands need to engage with their customers. Mm-hmm. I will get back to that in more details, how I see that's transformation going on. But that was actually the key pointer for us to take a very ambitious move to build a new platform, which we call a customer friendship platform, because we believe that brands and customers should be connecting like friends. Not because you have to be friends with all your customers, but because you actually have a very personal, engaging, and insightful way of communicating between friends, and that should be as I would say as agile and personal for brands and companies. That's our opinion in the market space.
So. Very exciting experience, also 19 years again in that sector, but also to me personally, very exciting approach to customer service, and calling it customer friendship is something you don't hear very often. And so for me, part of this podcast today will be also understanding why there is the need for a rapid shift in customer service, and maybe why we need new terms also to think about things. And so what we'll go through today is, first of all, we'll just talk about the shifting landscape of customers. Maybe demographic changes, but also cultural changes that are happening. And then how does that influence what the customer needs nowadays, right? So we have new possibilities, customers have new ways of living, and then we probably need to service them in a different way. And then we will go to the strategies that you can apply to service them better, to produce friendships if possible, of course. And then also a little bit of, because I know Dixa believes in, has very strong beliefs about what the customer service is actually when it's good, and also terms, and we'll get to those too. And that's going to be the last part for me, is the belief in what we should look like and what we should look at 2019 in customer service. So maybe to start with that, we had a discussion earlier today where you said to me, for us, we really don't like bad customer service. And you said also in your intro, you had some really horrible customer service experiences. So can you maybe give us, maybe not only your personal experiences, depending on how horrible they were, but what would be your top 3, 4, 5 no-goes in customer service nowadays?
So the first no-go, that's a very good question. The first no-go is the big challenge that we see in, I would say, 9 out of 10 brands that I connect with, and also here my friends and colleagues connect with, is that you have to repeat yourself with a challenge or a need. That could be a sales related, you're buying a travel package, or you're buying a car or whatever. When you engage on phone or email or even chat, or if you're lucky, you can engage with Facebook Messenger or other messaging platforms, you have different persons that is actually answering your request, if they are answering. And when you finally engage with a person or human, you will have to repeat yourself in these matters, which is time consuming. It's giving a feel of you just being a customer. And it's very impersonal because you're asked the same question. They don't know you. They can't recognize you. So I would say that is the biggest challenge I hear. And modern people today, especially I would say millennials, are very impatient human beings. They love convenience, and they also love to relate to a brand or a friend or a fashion brand as well. It's very much up in their world. And therefore, it's directly a provocative challenge for them if they're contacting one of their favorite brands, and they have this impersonal and non-recognizable experience. So that has become much more present in the last 3 years, because the way consumers are connecting with brands has changed dramatically. So you see a major rise in messaging. I think that's no surprise. Facebook Messenger being the world leader, then WhatsApp. And you also see a decrease in emails, actually, because millennials or my kids, they will never send an email to a brand if they can avoid it. And then you see a little bit of a rise in some industries on phone calls, because when you're driving a car, when it's very urgent, when you're calling your airline company, you want to engage immediately, and the phone is actually still a very, very powerful channel to engage and solve a critical problem fast. So,
I agree.
So that's why I see number one. Number two is an old challenge in the customer service industry and in the call center industries, where you have seen an outsourcing wave throughout the last 10 to 20 years. And here you see that not only impersonal or non-recognizable customer requests are an issue. The biggest issue here is actually that you have wrong answers, or to be very very brutal honest, to have rude answers. So no empathy. Very very trained kind of standard answers you're giving. You might as well come from a chatbot.
Yeah.
We still see that as a big problem when engaging with some of the larger corporations in logistics, for instance, or in travel actually.
That would be the old, my computer says this and that's all I know, and that's all I can help you with.
Yes.
Or this is the process, that's what I'm allowed to do, have a good day.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
Exactly. And then the third one, and I would say that's also a big one, that is what we relate to what we call the customer service paradox. And what we see here is that if you have a digital born company or a very lean e-commerce company, you have the majority of your customers helping themselves out. Of course, you only need to engage with customers when the situation is really critical, or you can see a way of engaging or having an upsell, cross-sell. So where there's a valuable engagement, you should help or be there for your customers. So what we see here, if you can grab that situation on all channels, then you have a big opportunity in saving even when you messed up. So in the customer service paradox, you see that customers that just buys 10 times from an e-commerce or web shop, they're pretty satisfied. They like the brand. But customers that has had a really horrible experience with not getting the package on time, they bought shoes, or their plane was delayed or whatever, and when they could engage with the human being, for instance, and they get a refund, or they get their shoes on a critical package sent immediately to them or whatever, then they're actually more happy than the customers that just go streamlined through the process.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at some of the technologies today that tries to automate everything in 100% pure digital and lean way, you won't be able to find these, let's say, 10-20% situations where you need to be there. So that's the most critical. So those customers having just one bad customer experience, according to Salesforce report, the connected customer from 2018, it's 71% of all consumers that had one horrible experience or bad customer experience, they leave a brand.
Okay.
Not because of the product or the service, they don't like it, but because they had a bad experience. So that's pretty terrifying number.
Significant, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would also agree from my personal experience and also from seeing other companies that screwing up sometimes happens, especially it happens in startups, but also in bigger companies, obviously. And that is not always a death knell. So screwing up can sometimes be an opportunity to create a great relationship.
Yes.
When you react well and when you understand what the problem really was, what really led to it, and when the customer understands that he can rely on you to fix mistakes. And that sometimes is much more powerful than relying on you to not make mistakes in the first place. Especially in the B2B sector, but also in the B2B, in the B2C.
Yeah, it goes to both sectors. I perfectly agree.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So maybe to sum this up, 3 biggest no-goes in customer service. Don't make the customer repeat themselves. Don't have bad outsourcing where info is not there, the customer is not really understood. Try to keep it in-house if possible, or don't do it badly. And the customer service paradox, where don't service the customer where it's not really needed, service them where the impact is the biggest, right? And we already touched on this quickly, but also as a base, where do you see the biggest differences between customer service needs for B2C and for B2B?
So the basics you just line up the 3 basics that has to be in place. That's a kind of a license to operate with stellar customer experience and customer service. But a big difference for B2C companies, for instance, we would take them first, whether that's an e-commerce, it's a travel, it's a tech startup scale-up that works with a marketplace or with B2C customers or end customers. The big thing here is that's a quite big mass of transactions going through their customer service or their e-commerce platform or whatever they have. And when you have this challenge, you will need some structured process around how you deal with these channels. And preferably, you would treat them as conversation, because all of them are just requests, contacts, or conversations. So whether it's a phone call, an email, or a chat, you need to be able to route it to the right employee at the right time based on the context that person is in. So here we're also talking about sentiment. We're talking about what web page are you actually looking at a product, or where are you initiating your request. And that's pretty high scale sometimes. If you look at some of the big e-commerce champions of Europe, they definitely have some challenges there, but some of them are solving them quite well. So that's a big difference. Whereas you're in B2B, you have, normally or typically you have fewer engagements with sometimes large customers. You have few large customers, or you have several medium-sized customers. There you mostly have a relational way of driving your engagement. So it's sometimes very sales related, and you can do a lot with I would say a typical classical CRM system like Salesforce or Pipedrive or whatever. But when that critical mass goes into a higher number, you will also see the same similarities I would say tendencies from B2C going into B2B. So, and if you look at tech startups specifically for B2B, these guys are normally, very oriented about technical support requests. So classic term of tickets and help desks. So they are sales focused and they are technical support focused, and that's a difference from a B2C company that has many commercial engagements and many service-related, not support, but service-related transactions, and that will require, I would say, different processes, different culture, but also different technologies.
Yeah. Can you maybe give an example, maybe from your experience or people that you know, or from your portfolio in B2C and B2B, of people doing really good customer service?
Yes, definitely. We in our portfolio we have one of the leading Northern European sports champions in the online space. So they're born digital. They are a born e-commerce company. They have a culture around their brand. They also have a culture around how to drive stellar customer experiences. So they actually feeded that all the way into all the processes around their channels. So they are available on all channels. They're not hiding the phone number. They're not, sending people over to a help center to help themselves out. They actually, I think they are a 120-person organization, but they are close to 60 persons that are customer-facing people. Not all of it is customer service. Many of it is actually driving an experience of the product after it's been used. It could be football boots or goalkeeper gloves or football jerseys. And a lot of it is actually using the engagement with the customer to also upsell, cross-sell, or give a different service around a recommendation on how to use the products. So that is it's called Unisport. That's really from the Nordics, and also in Germany, and it's also in the UK today. That's a pretty fine story on I would say excellent customer service. We do also see B2B brands going for the more, I would say, conversational way with the transaction across channels. But again, it's for us at least, where the technology we've built, where we see it fit very well, is where their landscape of customers, that could be small companies, a lot of them, is very similar to how you drive a B2C CRM approach. So there we see actually a very good fit of being, ever present on all the channels as well. And again, as said, I also admit to that classic support tickets in a very tech company, like a B2B tech company, just could be an IT service company, for instance. Their tickets and a support channel, and the back and forth on very, very technical stuff can be very relevant. So I would say that there you have great cases actually where they're really good at that, but you also have cases where B2B companies are driving their support towards a IT support world instead of going for the more relational or conversational way, but that's very B2C like. And that's back to all startups today or scale ups today. they are in the democratization of software. So they have a lot of customers, and many of them global. So they need to also, I would say, take an approach that has been, successful in B2C.
It's very interesting you say the similarities to B2C. So I had a situation recently where I learned about, it's not important which company it is, but they're doing B2B. And a lot of the customers are still preferring to just write the owner or the founder on WhatsApp and to ask for the request that they're asking for. So imagine you just connecting to your customers through WhatsApp. And it's a challenge because that's where a lot of the selling, that's where a lot of the customer service happens. But the customers just like doing that. So exactly. It's not very scalable, but apparently, depending on what customer you work with, people like different channels. And
yes.
This already maybe leads us to our next segment, which is, where do you see changes happening? We all know about demographics changing, millennials becoming more and more important as customers, and of course generations after that too. Where do you see big changes in the behaviors and also in the needs that you need to provide for them for customer service? Maybe, for example, in relating to the channels that they use. Yes.
So if you take that's a very good question. That's back to the tendency we have seen the last 3 years. If you take an outside-in approach for a brand, for instance, and just have a very it can even be a manual way, like you said with the WhatsApp or Facebook message, just to have a quick analysis of how your millennials or how your different customer groups they engage with the brand. So there's no silver bullet channel left anymore. You can't go as a company and say, I will primarily be on phone or primarily be on email or chat for that matter. You actually need to be present on all channels if you have different customer groups. And if you have, I would say all customer groups from millennials and up to maybe 50, 60 years, you will see that messaging is growing rapidly. Yeah. Because that's how they communicate as friends. That's how we communicate today. I use WhatsApp, I use Messenger, I use Twitter, I use LinkedIn in my professional life, the messaging part of LinkedIn, but I also use phone calls and emails. So that's a variety of things. I can control that because that's primarily one-to-one communications. But for a brand with thousands or millions of consumers, it's becoming a chaos actually if you haven't a structured platform or approach to do this. Yeah. So that this has happened the last 2 or 3 years, and it's a dramatic change. And back to what I said in the beginning, I also think you see that people are optimizing. Humans are optimizing for time. Yeah. We all want to be efficient. We all want to have convenience at our hand. Airbnb, Uber, all the things. Today there's an app for everything. So that will also drive the need for having a real-time engagement with the brands, or getting the answer immediately, regardless of channel. So the thing about dictating you to go to a help center or reading an FAQ, you will see that diminish very rapidly as well, because the young people are not going to do that. And they're not going to send an email and wait 7 hours or even 1 hour for a response.
It's funny because even maybe 2-3 years ago, self-help was supposed to be the next big wonder that just going to make everything easier in customer service. Mm-hmm. Everybody was talking about Anna, the chatbot from IKEA. I don't know if you know that one.
Yes.
And that
was a horrible customer experience.
Well, everybody was talking about it, right? So and there's certainly things happening there too, but it seems like there's multiple trends happening, and it could also go another direction, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right that I see a future where you of course need to do smart automation, you need to do convenient, and a chatbot that actually is able to answer standard questions, and even go further and being real machine learning, real AI, is going to be very interesting. We've seen some excitement about the last 2 years, and then we see some troughs now where it's really down the slump because it's been driven by many bad customer experiences. But what I see and it is coming now, when we see it's going to be really good at the standard questions and can do a seamless handover to a human being, if that's what triggers. So that's the need, because you can do sentiment, you can see whether you're angry or happy, if you're about to churn, all these things can be used. Then I believe that the combination of AI and humans, or chatbots and a platform for all channels, That's going to be very interesting future, because then you will see that the messaging part with a chatbot in any relation, actually, whether it's Siri or it's our platform or whatever, will take out a lot of the self-service FAQ, very static way of having information lying around.
Yeah.
So the self-service, I would say, hype and bubble is definitely going into another transformation where chatbots and AI, but also AI routing, we will find the right person for you based on a number of historical data and real-time data. I think that's going to be very interesting to see.
And I think that's also a topic that might be interesting to a lot of listeners and viewers. AI is obviously trying to be connected with every single topic. And I've also encountered it 2 years ago when I tried to set up a customer service where people were just trying to sell me AI solutions all day long. And I didn't really believe in them yet, but maybe they will be there at some point. And I think what's very valuable is for you saying you see the value at that point when AI enables a smooth conversation that goes from the chatbots via the customer service agent, and maybe at some point even back to the chatbot.
Yes. Definitely.
So the collaboration between the two is where the sweet spot is to you.
And across channels.
Yeah.
So the bot works across channel, even the voice channel, because we can do voice recognition today, we can do text-to-speech, we can transcribe in real time. All the frameworks are out there, so you're actually able to build a very comprehensive platform without it being a monster. So you're right. That transformation will definitely win. The question is, how seamless can you actually make the technology?
Very exciting to see where that's going, and also very exciting because the customer service is just becoming a much more important topic nowadays. I remember also for me, I work in the field, but even 3-4 years ago, it did not have that many eyes and ears on it. So it seems like maybe also because of the changes in demographics, customer service is just becoming more and more important. Why do you think that is?
Yes, and you're perfectly right. Let's say 3-5 years ago, especially in startups, again, regardless of channel, whether it's a startup or scale up in e-commerce or in tech or in travel or in financials or fintech, I think the focus was very much on generating new biz and new sales. And to that extent that it actually hurt the customer experience, and you did see churn in many companies. And as things has become more complicated, both on the channel side, but also that B2B customers or B2C customers are more demanding today, you will see the need for retention and customer service becoming key to success, actually, because you're spending a lot of money and a lot of effort driving very, very complicated marketing solutions, marketing automation solutions in CRM systems and sales stuff, but generally you haven't been spending much time on retention and customer success and support. So what I see the big driver of this is actually that the value of retaining a customer and upselling to a customer, making them happy, making the network effect, word of mouth, having them as close friends, like any brand should do. I think that's becoming kind of a new currency. So of course you need to be aggressive, especially as a growth company in the startup world, on the new sales, but you have to focus equally on the customer success side, as we call it in startups.
Yeah.
And to that end, I also see that customer service, which is the soft classic one typical from B2C, the customer support, which is typically technical support or at least some more sophisticated support. Customer success, which is actually coming out of the startup world, onboarding, support, retention. And finally, the sales side to existing customers. Those 4 S's, service, support, success, and sales, I think they're merging very much into a next generation customer engagement movement, so to speak, or a new kind of CRM system. We could also coin it like that, and that's where I see that the most, I would say, most innovative companies or digitally focused companies in all verticals, not only startups, I would say the champions that have seen this movement and moved in that, they will definitely have a competitive advantage and see lower churns and higher loyalty and more brand love than any other company. And to be a little bit provocative, if you don't see that in the next 1 to 3 years, I think you will not survive as a brand. Also seeing the competition of the big guys from Amazon, Zalando, Google, you have many big guys that are really doing a great job, but there are much more place for the more niche focused brands that we all love in different areas.
And what's very interesting, you also coined the term, or you said the term brands a lot. And in my mind, I would like to add to that we also see much more bigger importance on brand, especially also in millennials and newer generation, but also much wider connection, much closer connection between brand and service. So whereas maybe before it was more about marketing and also PR, and of course these things still matter, now brand is also linked to service. And we also see many times in the social media sphere how bad service can really damage your brand. So there's multiple examples. Every month there is some new XXY gate, something happened, somebody had bad customer service at American Airlines or at some other company, and these things just blow up, and that directly influences your brand, obviously in a very bad way. And then again, sometimes we also see examples of very good customer service that is distributed in social media, and people learn about that. To be honest though, usually the views for the bad service examples are more than for the good ones, yes. But they still do exist. And so I think the voice of the average customer and of their experience is just louder than it ever was before. Yes. And a bad customer experience, where before you might just tell your mom about it or your neighbors, now you can tell the whole world about it. And if the whole world listens, 500,000 people will learn that you provide bad customer service. So this way, I think service is much more connected and intertwined with brand than it ever was before.
I perfectly agree, and it's also, besides the close connection, it also have, of course, some kind of self-regulating effect that you also need to care. You should care about your customers. You should be close to them, yep. But you also need to do it, to make sure that your brand will survive and have a place in the market and in the hearts of your audience. Otherwise, you also see great brands. That could be a gaming console that I love and my boys love, where we love the product. We love the games. But when you maybe have a different contact or a different channel with their customer support, we have at least experienced a big gap between the brand we love and the experience we've had, and then the customer service experience we had, and to that extent that we, at least probably not my boys, but I could leave that brand. Yep. So I'm not even talking about just going out on Facebook and making noise. I'm just talking about the fact that this is that's a big gap between those two experiences, and yep. that those need to be aligned as one brand experience through any channel or any touch point. I know it's difficult, but that's why technologies are emerging these days for solving these things. Mm-hmm.
And also adding to that is not only I would call them really shitstorms on social media, that's just one way, but also maybe not the really bad and good experiences, but also the average experience of the average person who's going to review you on something like Trustpilot or Trusted Shops. Mm-hmm. So just trust building is much more transparent nowadays, and your rating will increase or decrease, and it will be visible. So every single person's vote counts nowadays, even if they don't create a huge media attention for it, and that will influence what people see about you and what they do about you. So going back to how do you connect your brand to the customer and how do you build a friendship, because I think friendship is a big term and it's an ambitious goal, and especially so me having a lot to do with sales. When you're a salesperson, it is much simpler to actually create a relationship with your customer. So imagine if you're B2B, you will have, 5, 10, 15 touch points. You'll drink coffee with them. You'll have some calls with them. It will take a while. You'll have them as stakeholders. You have meetings with them. So you actually do create a relationship. And you do have chances for small talk and everything. And maybe at some point you might even call it a friendship. But on the customer service side, So let's say I acquire a customer for my software as a service solution, and then I hand it over to customer service, and they'll have an account manager. It is much more different for them, which is why many times actually you will see customers trying to still call the salesperson that sold them the product instead of the account manager. So within all that, how do you actually manage to build a friendship out of something like that?
That's a very good question. I would say digital friendships is of course the way, because you can't have, let's say 1,000 different customers that contact you as a customer service agent or a customer-faced person. Whether you're in sales or support, doesn't really matter. But what you can do is that you can be personal in your way of engaging, and you can be friendly, and you can also be much more direct in your way, like friends actually communicate. When you have the context, you have the information, and you know the historical parts of that's like a true friendship. It's built on trust, you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
You will have trust in the brand, and you also have trust in the person you talk to. So let's say you're contacting a travel agency or you're traveling or an e-commerce company, and you do that several times. If Mads is available, I have been talking to you before. If I'm available, for instance, and we can see the data is pointing to that you need help for maybe similar challenge or an upsell, why not route it to me? I can see it's you. I even get some pointers that you've been here 3 times before and bought. I can see what you did, and I can ask relevant questions. I can even say, "Hi, Raul, great to see you again. How was your trip to Thailand with us back in January?
Yep.
I see you looking at the Maldives. How would that be relevant for you guys or your family to go there?" It's not hard. It's of course a matter of your culture in your customer-facing teams, but it's also a matter of how you use the data you have at hand and how you use that across all the touch points that a customer could engage. And by that, I'm not saying you have to be friends with all your customers. You can't drink coffee with all your customers, but you can definitely build some strong bonds through a digital engagement. That is why we're calling everything. We're not talking about tickets or deflection or cases or emails. We're talking about conversations. That's why we believe that there is a movement towards conversational customer engagement. And the other word of that is customer friendships. So you can use your data, you can use your branding culture and your experience of your product to drive customer friendships. Mm-hmm. And then you can do it big scale, but you have to be true to how you do it, and you can't go all the way to be creepy. So you know what you did last night and all these things. It has to be a good balanced manner. And in that way, you can actually replicate some of the things you mentioned from true or real friendships, and also from close relations in the B2B world, where we have more a account-based approach to sales, for instance, or service for that matter.
Yeah. So in my eyes, I really like the thinking in conversations. It makes a lot of sense to me, and it really resonates with me also as a customer. Me as someone who I've built up customer service departments, coming from that view, it is a very strange term, I have to say, because coming from the other tools that I've used, but also the schools that I've gone through, the thinking is a little bit different. But it makes sense depending on or looking at the solutions you have right now and the possibilities you have right now to actually make it one conversation. So maybe just for somebody just interested in how do I actually make this happen, maybe you can give a short intro on how would you make conversational customer service happen from the ground up in 2019 that is fit for what we need nowadays. Let's assume somebody's just starting their own customer service and they want to make it conversational. What would they need?
Yes, first of all, they have to look into the culture and the brand. Do they want to be there for the customers, or do they want to drive a lean deflection machine? Mm-hmm. So that is, because it's a free country. It's up to how you want to drive that, and if you can also look into the value of it. Do you think you will have customers within the first month or a year, and how do you see that? So there's of course some balancing in that. But if you want to build a brand, if you want to drive some strong bonds to your customers, you will need to look at a platform or a process approach where channels doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. You cannot silver bullet your way out of this. You cannot just implement a help desk to take care of all your customers. You can't not just buy some mobile phones and believe you can get them to call you, which will also be a little bit weird, or just drive your customer service purely from social media, let's say Facebook, because that is not how people and not how friends they communicate today. So you need to look. I wouldn't even call it omnichannel or multi-channel anymore. I definitely want to call it a conversational approach because that's what we're talking about. But I would rather call it a channel-neutral approach to drive engagement, because it really doesn't matter if you can embrace all channels as conversations, because they are just conversations. Whether we're sitting here and talk, whether I'm calling you, or we're on Facebook Messenger, on WhatsApp, or we switch between them, it is conversations. Some of them are connected about the same matter on different channels, or they are new conversations starting on new channels. And that is how we, modern people are working with these things. So you need to adapt to that. So I would say, and if you can also see a merge or a transformation between how you drive your sales or retention, at least, your customer success, and also your support and service, whether that's sometimes the same, right? Sometimes it's a soft support, sometimes technical support. I think then you come a long way, and you can find technologies that support those means, and messaging could be a way to start it, because that is very conversational. I think you have nailed it, and not just take the de facto standards that are out there. Mm-hmm. For big corporations, it's some of the big brands within the call center industry. For startups, it's some of the well-known chat solutions or help desk solutions, and they definitely have some benefits. And they are a way to get you into the to let's say having a FAQ and stuff like that. But it's you can't silver bullet your way out of it anymore. You could do that maybe 5-10 years ago, as a startup at least.
Yeah. So maybe to sum that up too, number one is to build a customer service that makes sense in 2019 and that goes towards a conversational approach. And by the way, something I really also like about that is the longer term view you take on this, because a conversation is something that takes place over a couple of years possibly, and many bookings and many acquisitions. So number one about that is make a conscious decision that you're gonna make customer service that way, and make a conscious decision that you focus on service in a longer term, and that you want to make it a relationship and a friendship or a conversation even. Number two is be channel neutral, so make the customer reach you on wherever they want to reach you, and make it so that your people and your customer service agents can work whatever makes most sense in a way. And number three would be conscious of the 4 S's and of the differences and of different approaches that you need. And those would be service, support, success, and sales. And utilize them and help the customer in that way. And so I think if you take those, then you have a good guideline for, I think, the movements that are happening nowadays. And so from our side, we're very curious to how Dixa will also help this movement going forward. And I know you guys are really keen on creating this movement, and you really believe in this. So
definitely.
We also believe with you guys, and that's why we invested. And we're looking forward to how you guys are going to solve this, and also looking forward to what else we can share with the listeners also about the journey. So Mads, thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Big pleasure to be here.
Same.
And a fantastic topic to touch upon.
Great. Thanks guys for listening, and see you for the next podcast.